Hi, this is David Emanuel, Dr. David Emanuel, once again with a screencast. And today we're going to be looking at the first 5 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. We're going to begin with the letter Aleph, which is this letter up here. That's as it's printed. Now, if we're going to actually write the Aleph, then it would you'd normally try and use straight lines if possible. And you really just want to draw it just like that. So you're going to go down, make a diagonal, and then you're going to come with another 2 lines from the top like that. Many people do tend to just put curved lines on it, give it a bit more style if you like, and make it a bit more like the printed version up here. Now, with respect to the pronunciation, contrary to popular belief, the Aleph is not an Aleph. An A sound, sorry, the Aleph is not an A. It's not an A. It doesn't really properly have a sound in Hebrew. Most of the time it is dominated by whichever vowel comes beneath it. In Hebrew, the vowels all appear directly beneath the consonants from which they are sounded. And so if there's an E vowel, let's just say for example underneath, then you'll find that the E vowel dominates the Aleph most of the time in Hebrew, so it's not actually pronounced. Its transliteration symbol is a little cup like this that points towards the left hand side, and it's very important to remember that. Now just down here, if we go further down here on the screen, I'm just going to draw one. That's what the transliteration symbol actually looks like. It hovers, if you notice where I've placed it, above the line. So if there were another transliteration symbol, let's just say for example a B, then the B would be there like that, but the Aleph would be hovering above the line, and it would come next to the consonant, the following consonant, like that. Or if there was a vowel in between, then it would come in between. So that's the Aleph, and it's not an A sound. It's not an A at all. That's a very, very important thing to remember about it. The second letter that we are going to look at is the Bet. Now the Bet, as you can see, there are 2 forms. One of them has a little dot inside of it, and that dot is something that we call a dagesh. A dagesh, spelt like this for the time being, dagesh. And with the Bet, it changes the sound of the Bet, and with the dagesh, like this one here, then it makes a sound of a B, B, just like that, as in the word but, let's say. But without the dagesh, it may also be seen. We'll learn the rules for these later on in a different screencast. But without the Bet, then it makes the sound of a V. So you would pronounce it V, but it needs to be mentioned, if we're going to transliterate it, if we go to the transliterations now, there's a big difference between the two, interesting difference between the two. For the Bet, we would use with the dagesh, we would use just the normal B sound. But when it comes to the Bet without the dagesh, which we normally call a vet, then for this, we would use a B. Let me draw one up here first. We use a B, but we put a line underneath it, and that is the equivalent sound of a V. And so that would be written down here with a B, but we would always put a line underneath the B like that. Let me do another one here just to make it absolutely clear. Just like that, you put a line underneath it, and that line, if you like, is symbolic of the dagesh, which has been removed and appears, if you like, in the transliteration, because all Hebrew letters must have a transliteration symbol. It appears, if you like, as that line underneath. So if I were just to write, just as an example, a word like this, then the pronunciation of this, in order to pronounce it, we would first look at the this symbol here. we know it's equivalent of this, so we would pronounce a V. So that would actually say vet, vet, even though we've written it like that. And if I wanted to write the word bet with a hard B, then I would simply do the regular BET, and that's without, this would be an equivalent without the dagesh, so it would be a regular B for the word bet. Even though the dagesh, this dot in the middle, changes the sound of the letter, both of these are in fact still counted as a single letter in Biblical Hebrew. There's a similar situation also with the Gimel, the third letter of the Hebrew alphabet, as it's kind of similar and not exactly the same. With the Gimel, we also have a dagesh, and the Gimel makes a G, a G sound, as in the word, let's say, girl. G for girl. So the Gimel has a G sound with the dagesh, but when we remove the dagesh, as in this case here, with respect to the pronunciation of the letter, we will still pronounce it as a hard G, as in girl. But when it comes to the transliteration down here, and you can hear more about what transliterations are for and how they're used in a separate screencast. But for the transliteration, let's just go back to the form with the dagesh first. For the transliteration of the G, of the Gimel, sorry, we'll use the letter G, just a regular G like that. But when it comes to the Gimel without the dagesh, in this case we're going to use a G, and just like the bet, we have to put a line underneath it. And this makes a distinction, if you like, between these two, just as this Gimel has no dagesh and this one does. In the same way, when we're writing these out in Latin characters, we have to make a distinction between the two, otherwise confusion would reign. So that's the Gimel with and without the dagesh, different forms in transliterations, but with respect to the pronunciation, they are indeed the same. And the same story is true for the fourth letter, which is the Dalet. The Dalet will make a D sound, as in do, donut, or did, or something like that. And if I go straight to the transliteration of the Dalet with the dagesh, that's what that dot was called, then you'd see that it's just a normal D, and that's how you would pronounce it. But once we move to the Dalet without the dagesh, then even though it still makes a D sound, as in the word do, with the transliteration we use a D and we put that line underneath it again. The same as with the bet and the Gimel. So you would pronounce it the same, but it would be represented differently with the transliterations. And that is the Dalet. And the last one in this brief section will be the Hey. This one, you'll be glad to hear, is quite straightforward. It is in fact what we call a guttural, and this is something which I will talk about on a separate screencast. Most of the letters in this family are pronounced via the back of the throat. So it's a guttural letter, and the representation we use in English as regards the sound is simply a H, as in how. It's quite normal, quite expected, nothing strange. And with respect to the transliteration, we would also use a regular H. So it's one for one. There's no dagesh inside it or dagesh outside it. But as a guttural, I will say you will never ever see a dagesh inside of the Hey. Thank you very much for listening. We will continue on a separate screencast for the next 6 letters of the Hebrew alphabet.